Whoa. All right. Yeah, he said we're good. He said we're good. Okay, we're going to be in Mark 9. I had an extra one. Do you want a sheet? It is, but it's just if you want to write on it. It's just Bible verses. If you want to write on it, you can write on it. All right, so somebody explain to me what we talked about last time we were here. Somebody asked me when we walked away, what are you talking about? And I went, I don't remember. What am I supposed to talk? What did we leave off with? I know. All right, I won't try and go into it. We'll just pick up in Mark 9. You can see the verse 1 is left over from the previous discussion, which is basically the take up your cross, deny yourself, take up your cross, follow me episode when Caesarea Philippi, that's all that stuff. So that's what I remembered us talking about, Caesarea Philippi with the rock face. And Jesus says, Peter, on this rock I will build my church. And so it's always questionable what he was talking about when he talks about that rock face. So verse 2, then after 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John and led them up on a high mountain by themselves to be alone. All right, now we have 3 episodes in the scripture where Peter, James, and John are pulled away from the others. All right, do y'all remember the other episodes when that takes place? There's only 3. That's why it's always, everybody always goes, oh, Jesus had his 3 favorites, and they were with him all the time, and there's only 3 episodes. Can you think when them? Gethsemane, yeah. This episode, obviously the Mount of Transfiguration, which we're not sure where that is. We say a high mountain. There's a very tall mountain to the very far north in Israel, just above the Sea of Galilee, just beyond the Sea of Galilee. I want to say it's Mount Hermon. But it's just the highest mountain around, so they kind of go, oh, high mountain, must be where it is. But what's the other one? Come on. Jairus' daughter. Jairus' daughter is pulled away, or she dies, and they go in, and he says, let me take you 3 and the parents, and let's go in. So these are the only 3 episodes, but he's there on this high mountain. He's alone. He was transformed. This is our Greek word metamorpho. All right, we got a word, obviously, metamorphosis. So he was changed in front of them, and his clothes became dazzling white, extremely white, as no launderer on earth could whiten them. All right, now who's telling this story again? This is Mark telling the story through the sort of transcription and the story time from Peter. All right? So who's obsessed with the whiteness of the clothes? Is this Peter or is this Mark? You want to go with Peter? Does Peter sound like a guy that cares about white clothing? He probably would be. Peter had probably never seen this white before. Mark, we're not sure exactly about his history, but we think it was his house that Jesus used for the Last Supper, which probably would indicate that he was a wealthy individual. So he may have had access to launderers who had actually laundered stuff. So it's kind of one of those balancing. We don't know which one it is, but it's just interesting that it was really white. So 4, Elijah appeared to them with Moses, and they were talking with Jesus, which I always wanted to know, how did they know? How did they know it was Elijah and Moses? They go, hey, that looks just like our picture from Sunday school. Yeah, the Sunday school. We did a Google image search, and that looked like Elijah. So Elijah and Moses went with them. Now, how did Elijah die? Little trick question for you. Yeah, he didn't. He was just carried away in a chariot of fire, all right? And how did Moses die? Yeah, he was buried by God on Mount Nebo, all right? So God took him away and buried him somewhere on a mountain. And the implication is that he actually died. You can do with it whatever you want there. So that he does say, Moses, my servant, is dead. All right, so he doesn't say Moses, my servant, was taken away by God or something. But so it's interesting that they both do this. And a lot of people equate Elijah and Moses with the two witnesses in the Revelation um, who actually die and are lay dead for 3 days and then are resurrected, which is good for Elijah because eventually he needs to die. But Moses dying again is interesting, but who knows what we do with that. So they were talking with Jesus. One of the Gospels actually says they were talking about his exodus, which is interesting that Moses would be talking to Jesus about his exodus, his leaving the earth. All right? So just interesting there. Then Peter, of course, Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it's good. It's kalos for us to be here. Let us make 3 tabernacles." Now, don't get too weird about that word. It just means tent, all right? Let's make 3 tents. Skenoo is the word. 1 for you, 1 for Moses, and 1 for Elijah. 6, because he did not know what he should say. So when Peter doesn't know what he should say, what does he do? He says something, all right? Since they were terrified, all right? Ekphobos, all right? So he was so scared he just talked. You've been around people like that just, if they don't know what to say, they say something, all right? Which generally, that's just Peter's personality right there. 7, a cloud appeared overshadowing them, and a voice came from the cloud. "This is my beloved son. Listen to him." Which I always wondered why it doesn't say Peter. Because why? Who's the one talking? Who's the one that doesn't know what to say? Shh, Peter, shh. Just know this is my beloved son. Listen to him. Suddenly, looking around, they no longer saw anyone with them except Jesus alone. Right? So you got to pause right here, right? You got to stop right here in the text and go, okay, how weird was that? What are James and John doing in the moment? All right? We know Peter's going, okay, there's going to be a tent over here and a tent over here and a tent over here, and we're just going to stay here, and this is going to be awesome. And God goes, shh, quiet. Just know this is my beloved son. All right? And then Moses and Elijah are gone. Jesus is standing there all by himself. And so I always wanted to know what the look on Jesus' face was like. What'd you think about that? Wow. Who knew we were going to do that? That was good stuff. So James and John, they are there along with them. And then we get a little conversation here in verse 9. As they were coming down from the mountain, he ordered them to tell no one what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. All right? They kept this word to themselves, discussing what, quote, rising from the dead meant. All right? So now, play this out a little bit. So Jesus says, guys, here's the deal. You can't tell anybody what happened until I rise from the dead. What part of that sentence did they get? Did they go, oh, man, you mean we can't tell everybody when we get down that Moses and Elijah showed up in these white clothes? We can't tell everybody what happened? I think they're sitting there going, what would we say? When no one would believe us anyway. So it was like, no problem. And what is this rising from the dead thing? Again, this is one of those things, that partial hardening that Paul talks about with the Roman church. This is with the Jewish people, there was this partial hardening that they just could not get their head around what Jesus was talking about. So I always think it's funny. What would I say? I don't think I convinced anybody one way either about what just happened. In 11, they began to question him, and they threw a question out, just a random question. Why did the scribes say that Elijah must come first? Jesus replies, Elijah does come first and restores everything. How then is it written about the Son of Man that he must suffer many things, be treated with contempt? But I tell you that Elijah has come, past tense verb there, and they did, again, past tense, whatever they pleased to him, just as it is written about him. And who's he talking about? John the Baptist, right? Yeah, he pretty much says, John the Baptist, that's who it is if you can accept it, if you can get your head around this, and you'll understand this later on, that this Elijah figure was the John the Baptist figure. So he was there to restore everything, set the table, be the forerunner. So when they came to the disciples, so the 3 plus Jesus come to the disciples, they saw a large crowd all right? And who's telling the story? Peter the fisherman. So how big was the crowd? It's mega, it's huge. You couldn't imagine how many people were there. There's a large crowd around them. And this is a verse I use a lot with kids coming home from camp. You come down from the mountain, and a large crowd always meets you. And what will you do in that moment? So a large crowd gathers around them. Scribes were disputing, souzateo, seeking together. They're trying to figure out something together with them. And all of a sudden, when the whole crowd saw him, they were amazed and ran to greet him. Then he asked them, "What are you arguing with them about?" Who's he talking to? He asked them, "What are you arguing with them about?" Who are the thems? So he asked the large crowd, "What are you arguing with them about?" Who's the second? The scribes. You want to go with what? The disciples? Yeah, which one? Who's he questioning? Yes. There's a lot of options here. So we don't know who is arguing with who, or who Jesus says, what are you arguing with them about? So he's talking to one crowd and asking about the other crowd. So there is evidently Jesus' disciples are arguing with somebody, with the scribes. And so he's asking one of the crowds, "What are you doing here?" All right? I would probably lean with Jesus asking the disciples, "What are you arguing with the scribes about?" Because those are his disciples. And so it's always the teaching mode for him. It's all right. But that's, who knows? We don't know. 17. Out of the crowd, one man answered him, "Teacher, I brought my son to you. He has a spirit that makes him unable to speak. Wherever it seizes him, it throws him down. He foams at the mouth, grinds his teeth, and becomes rigid. So I asked your disciples to drive it out, but they could not." All right? Now, this word is not dunatos, which would be that could, able kind of a thing. This is, they did not have the strength, the iskuo. All right? So it's, again, I don't know if your translation, if you have your other translation with you. So I asked your disciples to drive it out, but they could not, or they did not have the strength to do it, or the power, the iskuo, all right, which is a different word than dunatos, is more the capability. This iskuo is the actual ability to do it, the strength to do this, all right? So what does that look like? I mean, why did they not have the strength to do this? Why would they have the strength to do this? When Jesus sends out the disciples, the apostles, that's why we call them apostles, the sent out ones, what does he give them? He gives them his name. He gives them the authority over spirits. And what do they come back and report? They come back and say, "We drove out demons. This was so cool." But now what happens? They can't do it. Now, did that have like an expiration date on this? I'll give you 48 hours to do this. You get 2 weeks. Hey, we don't know. They don't have the strength to do it for whatever reason. And they're very confused. And I think this is the argument. They're trying to, the disciples are going, "Come out." And they're not. And so I think that's part of the argument there. 19, Jesus replies to them, "You unbelieving generation." Again, who's he talking to? Disciples? Anybody else? Scribes? The dad? The whole crowd? All right, so he's not making so much an accusation as a general, all right? "How long will I be with you or be in front of you? How long must I put up with you? Bring him to me." What's the tone of that? "You unbelieving generation, how long will I be with you? How long must I put up with you?" Literally, it's an echo, which means to have. How long am I going to have you here? All right, bring him to me. Exasperated? He does need to explain that, doesn't he? Because you don't appreciate that one bit, I can tell. All right? He does seem very frustrated with this, and I don't know why exactly. What are the options? Is he really upset because they aren't able to drive out the demons? Because he does sound exasperated with them as if they were failing. Yeah. 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 Is Jesus, God in the flesh, allowed to be frustrated because people aren't able to do something when he thinks they should be able to do something? Because if he's God, he knows everything, and he knows they're not able to do it and why they're not able to do it. This is one of those occasions where you got to let God be God and be sort of human, and like, why can't you guys get this? What's going on here? Yeah, let's get into the conversation. All right, so bring him to me. Uh, now, is there any urgency at this point in the story? Does anybody sense any urgency? I brought my son to you. They couldn't do this. Here's what happens to him. You unbelieving generation, how long will I be with you? How long must I put up with you? Bring him to me. So they brought him to him. When the Spirit saw him, who's him? Jesus, right? It immediately convulsed the boy. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. What's going on here? Spirit sees him and immediately starts to attack the boy. Why? He knows who he's about. I mean, I'm going to play nice here. To me, it's like the police officer. You know, you see the police officer, and what do? Do you floor it and do donuts in the middle of the interstate? No, you slow down. You go, oh, I wouldn't do anything. I was just going to slip right out of this little boy because last time I got thrown in pigs, and that didn't end well for anybody, all right? He's just rolling around. It's almost like I've got 1 more minute to inflict as much damage as I can, all right? Now, is there urgency now? If you're the parent, if you're the dad, are you just going, see, this is what he does? Yeah, I know. I mean, look at, he's convulsing, fell to the ground, rolled around, foaming at the mouth, all right? 21. How long has this been happening to him? Jesus asked the father. From childhood, he said. And many times it has thrown him into the fire or water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. Now, I read that very calmly. Do you think that was the tone the dad was throwing out here? And Jesus, what's Jesus' question at the beginning of 21? So how long has this been happening? Is there a sense of urgency in the voice of Jesus there? Yeah, I mean, it does. It sounds like a doctor. So how long has that been there? How long have we been doing? Meantime, the Spirit is taking one last shot at the kid. And what does the dad say? Sometimes it does what to him? Throws him into the fire. Can we get on with this? I brought him to your disciples to get rid of this. He gets into this convulsion, and now you're doing a history on this guy going, okay, so how long has it been since we've been doing this? Okay, so, all right. So I would have urgency as the parent. Jesus doesn't seem to have that much urgency here. 23, then Jesus says, he says, but if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us, all right? To me, this is the Jairus with his daughter about to die kind of moment of hurry up, let's get to the house. 23, Jesus kind of gets a little offended by this. I mean, the boy's still convulsing on the ground over here. Dad's going, can you do something here? Because sometimes he throws him in the fire, and Jesus is still going, what, like I can't do this? You're asked. Then Jesus said, if you can, everything is possible to the one who believes. Again, where's the urgency? It's non-existent. It just isn't. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, so he's got his disciples right there. He does. Yeah. All right. Immediately, the father of the boy cried out, I do believe. Help my unbelief. What's wrong with that sentence? Oh, it's a great sentence. It's a great sense because we know what we're supposed to say, and then we get honest. Yeah. I do believe. And in the back of his mind, he's going, maybe because I don't believe, so I just got to own it and just go help my unbelief. And I think at this point, Jesus kind of goes, now I've got you where you can receive what I'm about to do for you. Now you're in a position to hear this, all right? When Jesus saw that a crowd was rapidly coming together, what does that look like? This boy's over here. I would think the crowd was already be with him if I saw a demon-possessed person kind of, but a crowd was coming together. It's almost as if he like, okay, we got to hurry up and do this before everybody gets here. All right, remember that messianic secrets don't play. He rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, you mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. Then it came out. You know why it came out? Because Jesus told it to. Jesus has absolute, utter sovereignty over these things. Then it came out, shrieking and convulsing him violently. The boy became like a corpse, so that many said, he's dead. But Jesus, taking him by the hand, raised him and stood him up. After he went into a house, his disciples asked him privately. This sounds very familiar, doesn't it? This is what he does when he tells parables. And the guys are going, did you get that? I didn't get that. I didn't follow that at all. Jesus, what did you mean by that? Why couldn't we drive it out? And he told them, this kind, this genos, this gene, this type of genetic, is our word, dunatos, is only able to come out by nothing but prayer. And then you have and fasting on there, which is not in a lot of the manuscripts that we have. All right, so there's some people are iffy on that fasting thing. Now, does that mean if I have a situation, I need to just go pray about it real quick and not eat for those 5 minutes, and then I'll be able to do this? Or what does this mean? This kind can come out by nothing but prayer and fasting. Is that if I pray, I get it. Name it, claim it. And don't eat while I say those 10 seconds worth of words. Yeah. Which would then enable what? How does he describe them? You, what kind of generation? Faithless or unbelieving generation. So the way I see it is the prayer and the fasting does what for us? Well, what does it enable us with? What does it put into us, that belief? So that when we do encounter situations like that, it's not that we go run to our closet real quick and pray and don't eat. It's this kind can only come out for those whose habit is prayer and fasting. Because with prayer and fasting, we get belief, we get faith. It's a very assured thing. And then you're prepared ahead of time. Exactly. All right? Good. A lot of people miss that. A lot of people are like, oh, just go pray real quick. It'll be fine. No, it doesn't work like that. It's not the name it and claim it. God's not going to be manipulated by your words. So you may always. Where did the Spirit go? Not in the boy, because that's where it was told not to go. Yeah. Well, they actually requested to go into the pigs on that one. Jesus went, all right. Yeah. It's somewhere, but it ain't in the boy. That's the only time in Scripture it is that specific of directions. A lot of times it's just get out of him. And there's a parable that says that, the demon leaves and then it comes back with 7 stronger, all right? So you get that idea. I wouldn't read too much into it other than the fact that Jesus is making sure this dad knows this ain't going to happen again. All right? This is the last time you'll ever have to deal with this. All right? So, all right. 30. Then they left that place and made their way through Galilee, but he did not want anyone to know it. All right? He's being secretive. Again, that messianic secret is still in play. For he was teaching his disciples and telling them. All right? So this is more of an exclusive thing. He's been very public. He's been very public in his ministry up to this point. He's kind of retreating back. Why? Because we're heading towards the cross. We're heading towards the cross, and we got to keep this sort of in tight. He's pulling everybody in real quick as he's on his way to the cross, not nearly as public. For he was teaching his disciples and telling them, the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of men. They will kill him, and after he is killed, he will rise 3 days later. But they did not understand. Agnoeo, it literally means I don't have a mind that can receive that. This statement or this rhema, this declaration. And they were afraid to ask him. Again, we get this weird dynamic of he's saying the words very plainly. I'm going to be betrayed. I'm going to be killed. I'm going to rise again on the third day. And they're going, I don't understand what you mean by that. What do you mean by that? I'm going to be betrayed. I'm going to be killed. And I'm going to rise again. Yes, I mean, it's very clear. It's not like this is a foreign concept of resurrection or anything, raising someone from the dead. It's just this, I don't know what that means. Now, he's going to do this 3 times, which to me is the point of this. That he's going to say it 3 times so that we have it on the record. And they come back later on, and all the Gospels have this three-time prediction. I'm going to be betrayed, killed, raised on the third day. So they do recall this after the resurrection, but as they're walking towards it, it's like they don't get it, which I think had they got it, they would have done something to thwart it. I mean, Peter basically jumps in and says, no. This is not the way this is going to work. And it says, get behind me. So it's just an interesting dynamic. We just don't know why they don't get it. So, were you going to say something? I mean, Jesus, when he gets chased, yeah. Yeah, I think in that case, when they were in Jerusalem, this is John 7, 8, 9, the disciples are going, oh my goodness, I can't believe he just said that. They're going to come get us. They're going to try and stone us for saying that. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, they found some loophole in the law, and the disciples, these fishermen, are going, why are they so mad at Jesus? No, they all knew. So I think they're all kind of going, all right, watch out. But again, they think he's the Messiah. They think he is just going to eventually rise up and rule over, and everything will be great. I mean, that's the whole point of the Emmaus boys. We thought this is who it was. That's why Peter says, this is not what you're going to do. This is not what the Messiah does, not what happens to the Messiah. And that's when Jesus says, whoa, you're getting ahead of me, and you have to stay behind me because you don't know where I'm going. I know where I'm going, not you. So, all right. 33, we ready? When they came to Capernaum, all right, Capernaum is what? Capernaum's home headquarters, all right? This is where we always come back to, all right? When he was in the house, he asked them, what were you arguing about on the way? But they were silent because on the way they've been arguing with one another about who was the greatest. Now, who gives a rip who the greatest is? Yeah, I know. He's read minds everywhere he's gone. The rule is don't ever think around Jesus, all right? And yet they're kind of going, don't say anything because I don't want to tell him what we're arguing. Have y'all seen The Chosen? Have y'all seen the little TV? Y'all need to watch this. Yeah, season 1, there's 8 episodes. It's basically the life of Jesus, and they bring on the disciples. It's really, really well done. The Chosen. You can get just on your phone, get the Chosen app. Get the app, the Chosen app. Just get it on your phone. You can watch the 8 episodes. And it's really well done. Really, really well done. It's a guy out of, what's his name's church, Harvest Church, Chicago. Not Laurie. What's his name now? They fired him. James McDonald. You know who I'm talking about? Yeah. It has no affiliation with McDonald, but really good. And one of the things in there, it's Peter's kind of stewing. Peter's just all personality. It's really, really well done. And so Peter's kind of stewing about this, and Jesus, the Jesus character, looks at him and goes, Peter, what's going on? What you seem upset. You seem whatever. And Peter doesn't want to tell him. He goes, you know what I'm thinking anyway. Or you know what? So I don't have to tell you. You already know. In the Jesus character. No. This is almost episode 8. And Jesus character goes, Peter, everyone knows what you're thinking all the time. So I don't need to have Godly's power to do this. Everyone knows what you're thinking. And Andrew's character, Andrew's character's just real dry, and he's just sitting there going, yeah. And James and John are the same way. They're all sitting there nodding, so it's kind of funny. But that's The Chosen. Just go to the App Store, get that. You can see it on YouTube. Actually, I think I saved it onto our Facebook page, but it has the subtitles, which drives me insane. But that's... Yeah, I don't know how. We're just not that smart. All right. Anyway, what were you thinking about? Well, we were talking about being the greatest. Again, who cares who the greatest is? Why do they care who the greatest is? There's more than that. There's more than that. Because, we do that. Exactly. What did James and John ask for? In fact, what does Mama James and John ask for? Hey, can my son say, because you're going to rule and reign over this. And then The Chosen, James and John's mom is really cute. She's really funny. All right. They're arguing about who's going to sit next to Jesus, who's going to be the right hand, who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom of all of Israel. And they're jockeying for position here. And the thing they're arguing over, I'm like, what are your credentials? Who's putting what on the table? I mean, is Peter jumping up and going, hey, I walked on water, and everybody's going, for 3 steps maybe. You failed. You ate. Y'all couldn't drive out the demon. All right, and you're just, who knows? John, you're too young. All right. Anyway, this is their argument, though. And Jesus really gets on them about this because they're missing the point. Sitting down, verse 35? Sitting down, he called the 12 and said to them, which I would love to hear Judas's argument. I just told you someone's going to betray me. I'm going to be killed and rise from the dead. And Judas is over there going, I think I'm the greatest. Probably not. Anyway, sitting down, he called the 12 and said to them, if anyone wants to be first, protos, if your desire, your thelos, is to be first, the protos, he must be last, eschatos of all. All right? The eschatology, the study of last things. All right? You have to be the very last. All right, and the last one in line, and the last one to get, and the last one to look out for himself. And the servant, the diakonos, the one who serves, not necessarily the doulos, but the diakonos of all. Then this is really interesting. So I want you to picture Jesus is sitting around probably a campfire, and they're sitting kind of in a circle. You got to get this imagery. All right? He took a child, a paidos, a small child, all right, and had him stand among them. All right, the Greek is in mesos, in the middle. All right, mesos, middle of the. And taking him in his arms, he said to them. Now, give me a picture of that. He has the child stand in the middle of them, and he takes the child in his arms, and he talks to his disciples. What does this look like? How is he physically postured toward the child? He's taking him in his arm. Is he holding him? Is he picking him up? All right. I mean, the posture probably would have been to sit, but he brings the child in. So I always wonder if he's like got his arms around his shoulder, putting his hands on his shoulders, or if he's sitting there and go, come here, bud, sit here. because he's sitting in the middle of them, right? And this is why it's important. He said to them, whoever welcomes one little child such as this in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me does not welcome me necessarily, but him who sent me. So how did Jesus welcome this child? And what you have to remember is children were beyond irrelevant in this culture, all right? They were just kids you had to bring up, all right? You did not, it wasn't this overly nurturing environment, all right? The children sat at the children's table and they didn't bother the adults, all right? And when they got older, then they could come and play a little bit. But really, Jesus isn't even allowed to take any type of position of authority until he was 30, okay? So you need to understand that. When Paul brings Timothy onto his team, a lot of people have Timothy like a little lunchbox and heading off with Paul. And no, Timothy was likely at least 30 years old. To have a position of authority in this culture, in this time, he had to have been at least 30. Okay, so what does that tell you about the 8-year-old kid, the 9-year-old kid? They're nothing. They're nothing. You would not listen to an 8-year-old. What's the climate activist girl who's like 16 from Sweden or whatever? No, this would never happen. So Jesus takes this child that no one regards, no one gives any sort of credence to. It's not that they're abused children. It's just you don't have weight. You don't have wisdom about you at this age. We're not going to bring you in and go, what do you think? How do you feel? No, you're a kid. You don't get to think or feel. You just get to stay alive, and we'll educate you and train you. And then when you're 30, now you can start having an opinion. But Jesus does what? In the midst of this argument, who's the greatest? Who's the greatest? Who's the most important? Who's the most exalted of all these? Who is the wisest? Who has the best wisdom about them? Who is the most noble in all things? Jesus sits down and does what? Takes the irrelevant and says, come here, bud. Sit here. Puts his arm on his shoulder, whatever. And this is huge. They don't even know what to do with this. Jesus is so important, but yet he's taking the time out for this little bitty child, right? And he says to him, whoever welcomes such a child as this, in my name welcomes me. And in welcoming me, you're welcoming God, your God, the God of the Shema. The Lord is one. The Lord is our God. Love the Lord your God. And if I welcome this little child, I'm welcoming God into my midst. What does this do for these 12? And the idea of who's the greatest. This completely flips everything. Because Jesus talks about this, when you go into a banquet, where do you sit? Where should you sit? What was their initial aspiration? Go sit as close to the front, the most important table. The Chosen does that. Did you recognize that? Yeah. At one point in The Chosen, these rabbis walk into the room, and one of them tells his wife, hurry, go sit as close as we can to the front. And it's like, oh, don't do that, because Jesus is going to get you in episode 4, all right? So you have this moment, and Jesus flips this, okay? Now, in 38, we changed the conversation. And I don't know if Jesus is done with his little thing, but John changes the conversation. And Jesus eventually will come back to little Sparky on his knee here. In 38, it says, John said to him, teacher, we saw someone driving out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him because he wasn't following us. So he's over there talking about driving out demons in the name of Jesus. I don't know if he's successful or not. That'd be interesting. We tried to stop him because he wasn't following us. He's not one of the 12. He's not us. He's trying to hone in on our little game of we want to be the greatest. Don't stop him, Jesus said, because there is no one who will perform a miracle in my name who can soon afterwards speak evil, kakos logos, say mean things, say evil things about me. For whoever is not against us is for us. And whoever gives you a cup of water to drink because of my name, because you're affiliated with me, people know you're one of my disciples, and they give you a cup of water, what you're doing is you're blessing them and loving on them because of the name of Jesus, right? Then he says to them, since you belong to the Messiah, I assure you, he will never lose his reward, his misthos, his wages, the The wages of sin is death, but this is the wages of doing good is a reward. Right? It's almost literally a payment. So he's making the case, okay, so we saw this guy driving out demons in your name. We tried to stop him. He goes, no. If someone's doing something in my name, then that's drawing people to me. And they're not acting against us. They're acting with us. All right? But then he comes back to the kid. Look here in 42. But whoever causes the downfall of one of these little ones, again, back to the dynamic. Remember, John kind of diverts the conversation. All right, this welcoming children, I don't know about this. Hey, can we talk about this guy trying to drive out demons? And Jesus going, yeah, we can talk about that real quick, but we're going to come back to this. We're going to come back to this little one right here, because you need to understand the welcoming of the little one is welcoming God. It's welcoming me. It's welcoming God. All right? But whoever causes the downfall, this is a very common word. It's the Greek word scandalizo. We get our word scandal or scandalize something. It's to do something to cause someone to fall away, to cause someone to turn away. You put a scandal on someone to cause to defeat them. Whoever causes the downfall of one of these little ones, and again, I'm sure he's still got his arm around him. Just, here you go, Sparky. You see it right here. Whoever causes the downfall of little Sparky here, who believe or is a believing one, is a present active participle, which is what John 3:16 is, this one who is believing in me. It would be better. This is our Greek word kalos. Kalos means excellent, praiseworthy, the epitome. This is exactly, it would be better for him if a heavy millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea. So if you cause the downfall of little Sparky here, it would be better if we took you and tied a millstone and threw you into the sea. What would be worse? Do you see? No one in their right mind would go, oh, that millstone around your neck getting thrown into the ocean? That's a good plan. That's good stuff. That's excellent. That's a good way to live. No, everybody's going, that's the worst possible death ever. And Jesus says, that's the best case scenario if you do this to one of these little ones. All right? And then he's going to keep bringing it along, 43. If your hand causes your downfall, scandalize, then cut it off. Again, it's going to make the same argument. It is better, it is kalos, for you to enter life maimed than to have two hands and go to hell, the unquenchable fire where the worm never dies and the fire is not quenched. We're going to get that phrase a couple of times. It's a verse from Isaiah. All right? And if your foot causes your downfall, cut it off. It is better, kalos. This is a better plan here. Okay, that one-armed guy over there, yeah, this is best case scenario, all right? Because his arm was causing him to turn away, all right? Cut off your foot. It's better for you to enter life maimed than to have 2 feet and be thrown into hell. Same argument there. 47, if your eye causes your downfall, gouge it out. It is better, kalos, it's a better plan for you to enter the kingdom of God with one eye than to have 2 eyes and be thrown into hell, where the worm never dies and the fire is not quenched. For everyone is going to be salted with fire. Has anybody ever been salted with fire? What does that mean? What are we saying here? What does fire do to metal? That's not the complete picture. It heats it up, it then melts, and what happens? What happens to the metal? It melts down. The impurities do what? You see that the pure metal of silver, gold, or whatever will stay together. Any impurities rise to the top or burn off. All right? So for everyone will be salted with fire. What does that mean? Everyone's works will be revealed. What's pure and what's dross. All right? So as he goes through this, whoever causes the downfall of one of these kids, if your hand, your foot, your eye, you're all going to be judged. So it's better if you cut off your hand so you do not continue in sin. It's better if you cut off your foot. It's better you gouge out your eye because you're going to face the judgment. So don't walk around with 2 hands because you're going to be judged, all right? And if that hand causes your downfall, to you to fall away, you're going to be judged, and it will cost you, and you will go to hell where the worm never dies and the fire's not quenched. 50, salt is good, but if the salt loses its flavor, how can you make it salty? Have salt among you yourselves and be at peace with one another. So I wanted to look at these real quick, these three things. Your hand, your foot, and your eye. What do you use your hands for? To do, all right? So whatever you do, all right, what does that incorporate? Is that a small list of things? Everything. Yeah, whatever your hand, so if your hand leads you to do something, all right? I tell Court this. If your hand caused you to play video games, all right, we're going to cut it off, all right? Because you're about to cause one of our downfall. I don't know if it's mine or yours, all right? But cut it off. You don't want your hand to cause you to do something. So what you do, literally what you do. What is the relevance of your foot? And what's interesting, in the Old Testament, it's your thumb, it's your big toe, and it's your earlobe, all right? Which that is the hands, what do you do? The big toe. What can you do without a big toe? Deanne? Yeah, if you don't have a big toe, you're going to fall down a lot, okay? So that big toe is where you're going, all right? What path are you going on? Which house are you walking into? Which business are you walking into? All these places you go. So your hands are what you do. Your feet are where you go. So now, how limited will you be as far as the places you can go with only one foot? How limited will you be with only one hand? And now, is this plan A? Go cut off your hand so you don't sin. No, it's pay attention so that you can have both hands, because that's God's best. That's what God desires for you. And then if your eye causes you to gouge it out, all right, it's better to have one eye than go the other way. And some people say, I'll risk one. I'll look, but I'll look with just one eye, all right? That's pretty dumb, all right? But again, what you do, where you go, and what you see. These things are the things that will get you in trouble. Just ask King David, right? We talked about that on Sunday. So, all right? And again, I like to bring this in sort of into that sexual connotation of what you see, because King David got in so much trouble with this. And I think God gave us our eyes so that we could take in beauty, so that we could take in the beauty of marriage and of woman and sexuality and all these things. But if we misuse it, then we lose that vision. We lose part of that ability to appreciate all that God has created for us, all the places God has created for us. And so I think that's why Jesus was saying this is, people always say, he wasn't being literal. I don't know. It doesn't sound like he's being metaphorical here. But I don't think he's saying, go cut off your foot. He's saying, if this is going to cause you to sin, it would be better for you to cut it off. So fix the problem, not start chopping off limbs. So anyway, any questions about any of that? Good enough? Good and good? All right, we'll pick up with 10. The question of divorce. Rich young ruler. I love Rich young ruler. It's a great story. So let me pray for y'all. Father, we thank you for just an opportunity to come and study your word tonight. I thank you for just Mark writing all this down and Peter telling these stories and just the experiences that you gave these men. I thank you for preserving these scriptures for these thousands of years so that we can understand and know you better. Father, may we be the people you desire for us to be because we understand and know your character, because we've studied your word. So, Father, walk with us. Lead us, guide us, teach us, dare us, challenge us, and make us better people. And we thank you for just the opportunity to come and study your word here tonight. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.